Hey, what's up? It's the Tim and Pete Show. And we are here at Tim's place today, and we got some guitars for show and tell.
Yep.
And we're going to talk about all kinds of stuff. We're going to see where it goes today. It's loosely unscripted today, let's say. Right?
It's jumping in.
Yeah. What do you have there?
It's pretty vibey guitar, not expensive. Double lipstick pickup that makes for a humbucker in the bridge. Oh, sounds good though, right?
That does sound good.
And then it's got the kind of Mosrite style pickup on the neck. And then the middle.
In the middle, is it doing some split thing with the lip?
I don't think so.
It's just full humbucker.
Yeah, full
wow,
humbucker,
how
yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
And it usually comes with a Bigsby, but they sent me this one. I like it.
Real solid with the fixed bridge. And it's hollow, right?
Well,
Looks like it's got an F-hole.
yeah. I don't know how hollow it is. It's probably might be chambered down here. We'd have to ask him. But
Right.
if I turn on a little bit of distortion, that's right.
Yeah.
It seems to be pretty throaty.
That's
And
vibey sounding.
This. Nice. I like it.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So it's a bolt-on, and it doesn't it looks like it's one of the sort of more reasonably priced guitars.
That
right?
it is. Yeah. Although I've gotten in trouble for that before.
Oh yeah.
Guitars are expensive sometimes, even when they're reasonably priced.
Right. There's always somebody that's going to say, "Whoa,
Yeah.
it's still a lot."
Exactly.
Yeah. It's one man's expensive, it's another man's inexpensive. But it's cool looking. It looks real versatile with those pickups, and also I would say that you're going to be a unique one on the block with that, which is always nice. Well, it sounds really good.
Looks like my old Mosrite, which I'll pull out in a second.
Oh, you have an old one?
I have one. In fact, I'll do it right now.
Okay, let's check it out.
Running over and running back.
Or this could be a while we wait. Oh, we're back. And we're back. Hi,
So here's
Jim.
the real thing. It's not a Ventures model, but I've had it for a while. One of my favorite things that I love to do with a vibrato bar is just the soft.
We call it manual modulation.
And particularly against a delay. I mean, Joe Walsh used to do some of this kind of stuff in the James Gang.
Yeah. So what's that James Gang record that with the Echoplex all over? Is that the second James Gang record? Then there's a song on there that I was literally on the internet, and I may have heard it before, but I don't think I heard this particular track.
Yeah.
And it said like it was like recommended Echoplex listening for that, and this was one of the tunes. So I went, I don't think I've ever heard that song. I went on the internet, found it, and it's outstanding.
Outstanding.
And the sound is like he just got the Echoplex and went, like Joe, I gotta write a song with this sound. This sounds amazing, right? And then like hooked it up and then wrote this amazing track.
Yeah, it's very soundscapey, and for back then, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, love it. But so check out. I think it's the second James Gang record, and it's like the first or second track. You'll hear it. There's we gotta find the name. We'll find the name and put it in the video. But it's
Anyway, sorry to play
no,
while you're talking. It's
this sounds amazing.
Kind of irresistible just to go. But now you can do it with that too.
Well, so this is an interesting thing, and here we go, our unscripted, but this is a good point. All tremolos kind of have a different feel and sound.
They do.
The action creates a, so we should, if you do that, well, I want to hear it in your hands, because with the same tremolo,
Good idea.
Or sorry, with the different tremolo, but the same hands is, all right.
I used a Floyd Rose in the 90s. Even long after people stopped, I depended on this to keep my guitar in tune.
Right.
I really did. I love them. I still use them occasionally.
But it's a different action.
Different. And you get a different effect. Oh, this is great.
It's a more pronounced vibrato with less motion, I find. Like you're gonna get more pitch, right?
Yeah.
So these have a special sound that is really cool.
Okay.
I wonder if you do this position. resolution too, might be more.
But literally your style changes, and when you use it, you go, what's the best way to use this? And I find myself doing less, doing a more subtle bending thing on this one.
With that one, yeah. But it's nice, right? That action is familiar.
Nice.
Okay.
And then with this, I'm going to want to be just a little more broad with it.
Yeah.
Naturally goes like this more, where that's more controlled.
Yeah, it has a beautiful, beautiful thing for chords.
So cool.
Is that kind of like, it's like a quasi Bigsby, right? Like not.
I don't know. I mean,
It's their own.
It's a Mosley, it said. Okay, so.
I guess they build a lot of their own stuff,
Yeah.
right? Bridges and.
But we'd have to research Mosley.
Yeah. These are. I mean, these guitars are like, you know, unicorns kind of. I mean, it's like you just don't. I've never even played one. I don't think, you know. So it's kind of. I don't have a perspective on their sound or their pickups or the different. You know, it's like. I just don't have a lot of knowledge about them, but they were built in California, right? Mid '60s.
Yeah, and the one that's really valuable is the Ventures model.
Ventures model, right?
But this, I think this is very similar. I got this before they got expensive. I've had this for a long time, like 15 years.
Yeah. Well, this tremolo.
Here, plug into this guy.
Okay. This tremolo I got on here recently because it had the vintage style tremolo, and I just wanted to try, you know, the Floyd I grew up with, and so it's like this thing where it's like there was something about the Floyd when it came out, and when I play, I mean, it became a part of the way that I play. Like I just kind of was always, yeah, and then,
yeah,
you know, just constantly. That's nice. I mean, so. And you play differently when you don't have the fear of going out of tune.
it's true. Oh, you said that.
You know.
And I thought that's a pretty profound thing to say, because Gibsons in particular for me can be problematic with the G string, and so I do kind of restrict. I don't pull as much on the G, and I'm careful around it. So that's really true.
There's a little fear,
Yeah.
I find,
Yeah.
with, you know, with the, you know, with these I just used to, you know. And I kind of used to do vibrato with them a lot. I mean, it wouldn't always be, I'd grab the bar. And that was just the way I played, like, because I grew up with one in the 80s. So I just wanted to get one again on a guitar. And it was John Sear's recommendation, actually, that I try one with the no fine tuners, and don't get the locking nut, and just do the you know, the locking tuners. And I'll be damned if it, you know. It's great.
No string trees.
You can really abuse it, and it just really seems to stay in tune. So,
Well, I remember when I first got here, this was the bridge that was available, the no fine tuner bridge, and it took some doctoring to get it done. But all of it, you can do it all down there. So
I mean, that was
doesn't matter.
It was pre-locking tuners, I think, then, right?
Exactly.
So this is kind of a thing that now we can do, and I feel like this really. You know,
and the tone of this is probably a little bit different than the fine tuner one.
Probably, I would say it's just less hardware and less stuff, and I like that it's a little more low profile looking. You know, I do know that he had to spend some time getting the knife edges super sharp. So that was one thing. If you get one out there, I don't know, maybe something for a tech to look at, but so that when you pull up and pull down, it doesn't go flat or sharp.
At all.
But it is really fun to have. And not feel like I'm, going to come back out of tune.
in the 90s a lot, I would track using a Floyd Rose guitar, even though I would pretend I was using a Gretsch or something, but I wanted my tracking part to be in tune.
Yeah.
And so I could really slam away at it
Yeah.
and trust it. And one of the ones, I had an Eddie Van Halen Music Man that had the Floyd Rose, and I would use that instead of a Les Paul because it would stay in perfect tune as I was tracking. And then when we went to overdubs, then I could use other guitars because then you can kind of tune as you go and stuff.
Right.
But I relied on Floyd's for the tuning aspect for a long time.
When you're cutting those basics that you really want, like you want to get a track with the band, and you don't want it to be like, oh, sorry guys.
Oh, sorry, exactly. If the G's out of tune, you have to go back out. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is something I feel like we had kind of figured out in the 80s.
Yeah.
And then it's like now everybody's like, including me, tuning in between songs, like, every song I'm like, or it's sometimes in the middle of a song, I'm like, when I got this thing, it was just like, oh, I remember what this is like.
Yeah, it's fearless.
It's like, you can be just fearless and go for it, and it's so much fun.
Yeah, and you can really kind of bend stuff and hammer stuff and hit stuff hard without fear of,
With the springs are set up right, because the only drag is if you do hit them hard, I find they flutter a bit.
Right,
do that thing. But this one, it's actually really quite good in that department. It's not.
Well, that's your governor, so you don't hit it too hard. You're picking too hard if you're.
Good point. Good point.
Yeah.
Picking, it's when we did the Lyle Workman episode, which is the last episode we did. He mentioned something that I keep thinking about when I track now, which is we always, I always feel like I'm learning something every time we meet up with people, and including you. I'm always learning things every time we meet.
Likewise.
But with Lyle, he mentioned something about not playing too hard. And that was what my takeaway from that day is like, it's good if you're not, because I think he was talking about playing with his thumb and kind of, strumming chords and then swelling into things. Yeah. But I found that really interesting. Like, so make sure you're not playing too hard and I thought, God, I took that away and I thought, even when I, am playing like there's that fine line where the string doesn't necessarily want to give anymore. Maybe you're laying into it too much and now all you're getting is like the strings flapping against the frets or something, and it's not. You're not letting the tone speak of the...
Well, yes, there's a wall that you hit when you're playing hard, and if you have a very loud guitar sound and you play it gently, there's this bloom and this...
Right.
It's like trying to explode all the time, and you can play with that.
Yeah.
And with your hands and your fingers, too, but even with a pick, I think this is the Daniel Lanois thing, is to have a super loud signal and monitor really loud. That's a part of it recording. Make sure it's really loud so that you're forced to barely touch it, and it's hard because all the little squeaks and scrapes, come out.
How interesting. I guess that's a two-way street because sometimes when I'm tracking now, I find myself turning the guitar down in the mix because I find I'm critiquing too much. Yeah. And if there's a little thing that I don't have quite rhythmically right or whatever, I'll be like, oh, that's a bummer. And I'll be like, wait a minute, like you wouldn't play like this if you were playing live. So sometimes I'm totally contradicting myself, but we're all in an art.
Well, that's the thing. You should play with it because if I'm doing a part that's very rhythmic, I want that part to be inside the drums. I want it to be like the hi-hat. So I want it to be small so that I can immediately fit into that. But when you're doing like chords,
have a loud sound.
If you turn up and play it light, the paradox is it blooms and sounds twice as big.
Wow, yeah.
If you play it really hard and you turn it down, the sound actually shrinks. It's
now here's the attack, and then it's interesting. Well, I guess the moral is it depends on what you're doing.
Yeah. And I remember Michael Thompson was always so good at that. How did he get this huge fat sound? It's because everything, there's this rock presence a lot of the time, but everything was played really light with the right hand, and so.
Right. That's interesting. I mean,
a lot of people.
When I started playing bass, I really sort of figured out because I don't play good. I mean, my the extent of my finger picking on electric guitar was more like doing stuff like that where I'm doing like some sort of hybrid stuff. But I was never like the at least back in days of yore, I wasn't the Jeff Beck guy like just playing with my fingers. But it really became apparent to me with a clean sound playing bass guitar how if I turn way down how that has a certain sound as opposed to that.
I do the same thing when I play bass. I use my thumb. Yeah. When I try to play bass, I'm not a bass player.
Me either.
Not even a league of the guys that we know, but
I'm a hobbyist.
If I use my thumb, it's the same thing. The thing goes.
Yeah.
And if I use a pick, it goes like this. So, and both can be good, but if you really want to sound big, I just simplify the part.
Right.
use my thumb. You're saying you use your finger. Yeah, on a bass, it's profound.
Like the bloom.
The bloom.
If you
That's
want
what
it
I call
to
it.
bloom.
Yeah.
You know, and I
Yeah.
find the same. That just has a tack. Although I guess we talked about this with Scott Henderson, but
Yeah.
you know, where he plays with his middle finger
Yeah.
a lot of the time.
Yeah.
He's constantly using one finger. But you know, that's fascinating to me that he, in that episode, how he showed us that you would have never known had he not told us exactly what he's doing.
Yeah.
But it is cool, you know, just the variety of sounds that you can get. Oh, we just went from tremolos to fingers to picks to. Okay,
So what were you saying just now about the Les Paul? You have a tuning trick, right?
yeah, so in tuning Les Pauls, and I find a lot of people complain about Les Pauls and
I have, yeah.
you know, problems with the there's something about the fanned 3 on a side headstock.
Yeah, it's the split. Yeah.
Split, you got an angle going this way and back, right?
Yeah, so the G string in particular sometimes gets out of control.
G string is tough. I think it's something to do with short scale too, like it's a short
Yeah.
and Fender scale. So it's
Yeah.
like they're a little more you know what I mean? Like they're a little more springy. The strings.
Let me ask you something. When this guitar was built, was it meant to be played with heavy strings, a wound G, and no string pulling?
I think you're probably right.
You know, that's
yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
The slinky stuff didn't happen till the late '60s, right?
yeah.
So that's
So
the
if
point.
I would want to put a headstock on that had a straight string pull, and then it would look pretty geeky. So it's never gonna happen.
It's never going to happen. But so how do you deal with it? Well, the one thing that I always do, and here's a plug for my friend David at this place, that he makes a product called Big Ben's Nut Sauce.
Oh, I love that stuff. Yeah, I
It's
lost mine. Yeah, I got to get some more.
I know, I always lose the tubes, and I see them in NAM. Hey, can you hook me up with an extra? But
Yeah.
it's good stuff, and it just comes in something that looks like a little syringe, right? You just
Yep.
put it in the nut slot. So that for me
Yeah.
is a prerequisite,
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
well as a nut that is
Yeah.
cut with exceptional attention to detail on any Gibson style guitar. Really, that you really have to put some thought into the.
Well, that's a good tip too. Is making sure the nut is open enough for the strings.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
with the slots cut
Turned
at just a bit of an
a little bit.
angle.
Yeah.
I took my my old Les Paul Custom. I was having a lot of problems when I was in Japan. I was just fed up, and I took it to a place called Cruise in CREWS if you're in Tokyo. But you know, exceptional attention to detail there with the techs in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
This guy cut a new nut for my Les Paul Custom, and it was like night and day. You know, as far
Great.
as a bone nut that
Yeah.
was really slotted correctly. So that, along with the stuff in the nut. But the other thing that I do is that I have problems with both the G and the B string.
Okay.
That's where most of the issues
Yeah.
for me lie. And often, you know, the whole, we'll just look at the strings here. I'll go to the neck pickup. There's that G giving me trouble. So that's cool. There's the B. Now if I play the B fretted at the 3rd fret, it looks like that.
Oh yeah, that happens to me too.
And I
Yeah.
find that a lot.
Yeah.
The 2nd string
Yeah.
open looks like it's in tune,
Yeah.
and fretted looks sharp. So
Yeah.
this is what I do. And I'll kind of tune to maybe the 4th string open, you know, the D note
Yep.
open, and then fret and tune that. And now your open B string, no, it's still a little short. The open B might look a little flat like that.
Just on the edge.
Just
yeah.
on the edge, fretted at the 3rd fret, it's going to be in tune. And that's how I get Les Pauls in tune.
Yeah.
I tune to that note on
Yeah.
the D on the 3rd fret of the 2nd string.
So you're just tempering it. I mean, you're
Yeah.
tempering, finding the solution that's in the middle, and you
Yeah.
know, living with whatever the compromise is.
Yeah, the open string
Yeah.
being maybe slightly out of
Slightly out of
tune.
tune. But you can
which
actually
is-
get away with that. You play the E minor chord. You can live with a little of that, you know, flat B string. So,
Yeah.
But
And
you
it-
really want the D to be.
Yeah, because it's a steely 5th that
Yeah.
like, and even
Yeah.
as you get up the neck, I just
Yeah.
find,
It's beautiful up there.
yeah, I just find it's a good,
Yeah.
it's a nice compromise
Yeah.
to just make sure the fretted note is in tune.
Yeah.
So second string, that's my trick for Les Pauls. Okay, so if you're doing drop D, I find on Les Pauls that you know you can kind of tune the strings so that most of them look in tune, with the exception of that fretted, you know, note on the 2nd string. So I'll tune that, and then as I get down to the lower strings, 4th string looks good, 5th string, that's cool. That's how I tune the low string to D.
Just a little flat.
a little flat, because then when you fret it,
Yeah.
it's going to sound in tune, and if you're playing a drop D, you're probably rocking out a little bit. So you're
and when you hit it, because it's looser, it automatically
goes sharp.
So that helps. It goes
Yeah.
and then it settles. Yeah.
Yeah. So I want this stuff to be in tune so I can lay into it, and then it's a little flat, but it almost goes.
Yeah, and it sounds good flat, and it never sounds good sharp.
It
never sounds good sharp.
It sounds terrible.
Yeah.
It drives me crazy.
And if you put it dead even, it's going to go a little sharp when you hit it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's a good trick too.
Tuning tricks. You probably have a whole bunch of these, though. I bet.
You just gave them all away.
At least for these guitars. This is not a thing I do on Strats, by the way, or Tellys, or 25 and a half scale guitars. You can just tune it normally, I find, but specifically with the 24 and 3/4, those tricks seem to work.
Sometimes when I'm working and I just, the third, I might literally leave the third out of the part I'm playing. That's the other thing, is that sometimes thirds on guitar, on electric guitar, they're problematic. So if you're playing a D, you can make it a D2 chord, or just 1 and 5, or 1 and 5 here. The third sounds so strong, but sometimes that's sort of a tuning trick for me, because the third can be really pingy sounding.
Yeah.
Just beware of thirds.
You might avoid it for musical reasons as well as for tuning and for harmonic, kind of like integrity.
And distortion on a third, it can get kind of,
right.
I don't want to use the word squirrely. What's a better word? A little bit unstable.
It can be slightly unpleasant.
Yeah.
Dissonant. I mean, really, right? So.
I'll tell you what. If I'm overdubbing and I want a third, I hear this on Foo Fighters records all the time. Just do a second track, because if you do a D chord, rather than play the third, you take a second track and go.
Right. So I'm on. What chord am I
playing?
Play a D chord. I'm playing this.
Yeah, you put all that internally, and it's just going to fuzz out. So that's how. You can really do major sevenths. I love that.
Right.
Major seventh. If you don't stay there forever, it's just a beautiful dissonance.
Right. Yeah, that's cool. I did a record. I think this was a big part of the record production, especially with the kind of like, what do they call it, new metal or something in the early part of the 2000s. I found that record producers were overdubbing things like thirds and ninths a lot. They said, just play the power chord, and we're going to do that track, and then we're going to go back and retune, and now we're going to play the ninth. So if it was one of, if it was this chord, they literally wanted to do a track of, and a track of, and they'd get it, so you'd layer those and maybe do like a stereo pair of the power chord, stereo pair with the ninth.
Yeah, I mean I'm reminded, building actual songs from guitar parts can be very arduous, because getting everything perfectly in tune and getting, if you want this to sound good, you might have to do that. You might have to break it up because of the way you want it to ring at its maximum potential or whatever.
Yeah.
And then getting it in tune, and then doing the verse, and then doing the chorus, and the next verse, hours and hours.
Yeah. There's something else that happens, I think, besides just the guitar itself being difficult to tune, which is the speaker dealing with the frequencies of like the third and the ninth and like whatever else is layered, and the speaker's kind of, and as soon as you just leave it on its own, and let the speaker do its thing for each individual kind of, it can be more like when you combine it. It's not. I don't know that it's better. It's just it is a more complex, sort of technically perfect sound, right?
Well, it makes distortion sound beautiful.
Right.
If you divide it into two. If it's two guitars taking, dividing it, or two tracks dividing it, it just sounds beautiful.
There's a polish.
Pure distortion on a major seventh here, pure distortion on the tonic here. It sounds beautiful.
Yeah.
Put them together in one part, it's
right, which could be what you want. If you were playing, if you're Jack White or something, or if you're doing, it might be the wrong thing to get it too beautiful. So it's all a part of like whatever you're trying to accomplish. I guess.
That's the thing. Anytime you have a concept, it's good to go to the opposite corner and use the other concept. And we've talked about that already today. Is you decide something works, well, the opposite can work too in a different situation.
It's art.
Always good to remember. The thing I always forget is to turn the volume control down to 7 or 8 because there's a kind of beautiful, like, clean, dirty thing that happens there. And a lot of the times I just turn it up to 10 and go. But there's so much good stuff that can happen, especially with these guitars that have the treble bleed circuits now, with a cap in, and so it doesn't degrade the tone when you turn the volume down.
Right.
So that's something that I'm trying to remember these days is to go up to 10. And in the 80s, like Neil Giraldo produced a record I did with Pat Benatar's band. I mean, he was constantly, he would come out to my guitar when I worked for him, and he would turn it down to 7 and 8 to get this sweet spot of, clean meets dirty.
Oh, cool.
And I always forget that you can, you get so much good stuff at 7 and 8.
And so you can set your amp a little dirtier, and this is the beauty of the old amps with the kind of non-master volume style, where you can get it kind of like almost like nasty and gnarly sounding and crunchy and crazy, and then use the volume control, right? A la Jimi Hendrix or a ton of different players that would have done that, right?
Yeah, there's so much good stuff between 5 and 10, especially around 7.5 or 8.
Yeah, yeah. That guitar does have that circuit on it. Maybe you can kind of simulate that.
Here, let me take this if you don't mind.
Yeah. Show us kind of how you would approach. This is how I used to do channel switching, kids. Back in the day, we didn't have channels, so.
So you find this good spot around 7.5, and because this guitar does have the treble bleed in it, that reads as clean. Goose it. Spike it a little harder.
Yeah.
Different world. Back down to 7. I see what you mean about this. It's trustworthy in tune.
Yeah.
I'm hitting it so hard right now.
Beautiful. That's great.
Yeah.
I mean, and it really is a lot of fun and freeing to kind of not always be worrying about hitting the pedal or hitting the channel switch or, to kind of just crank that amp and get the amp really in the zone where and it's funny because I do think that there's a lot of complaints these days about volume on stage. And, everybody's like, man, they always making me turn down and stuff, and, I can't get my amp. But the reality is that if people played more dynamically, then maybe it wouldn't be such an issue. And this is, I always think of Government Mule, my friends that play in that band, Warren Haynes, such a fantastic guitar player. The Government Mule stage is loud. I mean, it's like, and excuse me if I brought this up in another video because I can't remember if I've told the story, but I use those guys as an example as a stage where Warren's playing a 100-watt Soldano, sometimes combined with another amp. The bass player, Jurgen, is playing, I believe an SVT, or maybe it's a Marshall Major style amp with also like a Marshall Super Lead style amp, something like that. He's got two like really powerful amplifiers going. One of them's a guitar amp that's set dirty and like crunchy. There's two, for the organ for the B3, there's two Leslie cabs on stage, one on either side. So when he's laying into that stage is like vibrating with them. It's an amazing sound. Right. But so if in the wrong hands, a stage like that would be out of control, and the sound guy would be going, stop, but they play like like it's almost like getting back to the thing with the fingers and playing lighter and a loud sound that's turned up loud, but playing really dynamically and roll way down on the volumes and stuff. And then when it comes time to kick ass, they hit 10 and goose it and then play and then back it off again. And it never strikes you as being like an onslaught of volume. It's
and they play with dynamics. A lot of times the drummer will play full out from the beginning of the set to the end of the set. And when I sit in with a band or play with a band, and let's say I'm about to do a 32-bar solo, I'll say, let's start this dead quiet so that I can ramp up. It gives me some place to go. And a lot of people, that's another thing, like I forget to turn the volume down. There's nothing that holds an audience attention more than getting quiet for a second. Yeah. And so if I'm doing a solo, I'll ask the drummer, can we start this at kind of half volume? And then gradually bring it up. Cool. And then the audience's attention actually starts to focus on you when you drop for a second. Okay. You were at Guitar Center.
I was at Guitar Center, and everybody was like, and then one kid was like, and another guy was going. And then there's a guy in the acoustic room going, and all right. We're back. Sorry, I'm a little crazy this
But
week.
you were talking about playing loud, playing soft?
Oh, right. So we were talking about how to be effective
Yeah.
and give people a break, an ear break, and then
Yeah.
kind of like there's nothing that pulls people in more than that moment of silence.
Yeah.
So I remember I was like 19, but I remember being in this room with Richard Smith at one of the, it was like an open counseling session, a few of us sitting around jamming. And so we're all soloing, and taking our turn or 8 bars or whatever and going around and so he was playing it, and it came my time to play. So let's just say like an A chord or something, and I'm supposed to come in and 1, 2, 3. Or whatever, and he stopped and he goes, "You didn't come in right on the 1." He goes, "You just sound like you've aged like 5 years as far as a player goes in maturity," because he said you let some space go by before you came in. And I was like, oh, and he gave me the speak. He goes, "You sound," that was, if you take anything away from this week, and that's what it was, is you don't always have to, top of the bar, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah, I do the same thing. What will happen to me typically, though, is I'll do 2 riffs that are kind of spaced. And then I'll just go.
Of course you
And I'll
will.
see the waveform. It's like taste, no taste. It's just a solid line. It's just.
Oh, but it sounded great.
So the key for me is remembering that after 16 bars that I can still take a break and make it a conversation and speak rather than speak constantly,
So.
Space. But I do have to keep paying attention and not just going blah, 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 constantly.
Yeah. It's a battle, right? Because you want to it feels good to just, Let me try that again. But you're like, it's not maybe the right
Well, you took a space.
thing. I guess I did, but every now and then, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like a thing where it's like tasteful.
Yeah.
You want to. To me, it's just a conversation.
Yeah, but then so many great guitar records have had constant soloing too. So it's the nature of the guitar. me.
Well, if it's Eddie Van Halen, I mean, even he, who was known as a technical player, he always was very tasty about the way that he. You know what I mean?
Well, and going different places all the time, just.
Yeah, I loved your kind of you talked one time about how you always bring it back to the blues and stuff. You take a bit outside from it and then play an arpeggio, spell out the chords, and then a little flash, and then ended up with bring it back home with.
Really,
right?
always works, And then, so I'm always coming back to an old Eric Clapton lick or something.
Right. Well, that's a good thing.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
Familiarity is a good thing. We're creatures of habit, after all.
Yeah.
Oh, we're back.
Where's my pick? Here it is. Okay.
We should just play classic rock for a minute and then be like.
Oh, it's a mashup.
Oh, hi. Hey, sorry, we're back.
This was fun.
It was fun. So we're not always going to have guests because sometimes people get busy and they can't come on our show. But
Yeah, it's like herding cats. Basically,
it's a little bit, but we can have fun
It
on
can
our
be,
own.
yeah. So we're only herding 2 cats in this case. So
Yeah,
we'll do this again.
it's totally possible. We will do this again. We got plenty to talk about. So hey, thanks for joining
Thanks for
us on
watching.
Tim and Pete's Guitar Show, and we will see you real soon next time.
Next time.
Take care.